Voting getting underway today in 4 Russian-occupied regions of Ukraine to determine whether they should become part of Russia. Ukrainian and Western officials have condemned the referendums, calling them illegitimate and part of an effort from the Kremlin to claim the areas as its own. This comes as Russians scramble to flee their own country, lining up at border crossings for hours after Vladimir Putin's order calling up more troops to fight in Ukraine. ABC News foreign correspondent Tom Sufi-Burridge has the latest now from northeastern Ukraine.
Russia staging referendum votes in parts of Ukraine occupied by its troops, moving to declare that Ukrainian land as part of Russia. With the Russian military campaign in Ukraine failing, this a major escalation by Vladimir Putin. And with the Kremlin bringing in a draft, Russian men rushing out of Russia. Long lines at the Russian border with neighboring Georgia, people scared of being forced to fight. With flights out of Moscow selling out for days, according to a travel data company. Putin's draft already in motion. Relatives in Moscow saying goodbye. President Zelensky making an appeal in Russian, laying out the options of survival for new Russian recruits. Protest, fight back, run away, or surrender to Ukrainian captivity, he says. And in newly liberated areas, Ukrainian forces clearing up the remnants of Russia's occupation. Here, Ukrainian soldiers towing away tanks abandoned by Russian troops when they fled Izium in the northeast, revealing a mass burial site in the forest nearby. In the city, Russian flags now in the trash and used as a doormat at the entrance to the mayor's office. The Ukrainian authorities back, but challenges here acute.
Well, you can hear and see how desperate these people are for humanitarian aid. They've been living under Russian occupation for months, and they still live close to the front line.
Waiting in line, Tanya, a mum collecting food.
Tanya, what was life like under the Russians?
It was unbearable, she tells us. The Russians would just appear, point a gun at you, and threaten to shoot.
Gio, Russia's military draft appears to be much broader than the partial draft outlined by Vladimir Putin. One man in eastern Russia telling ABC News that large numbers of men in rural areas are being served with draft papers. There is real opposition to conscription in Russia right now. Putin has taken a big risk. Gio?
All right, Tom Sufi-Burridge in Ukraine, thank you so much. Joining me now to discuss all of this is ABC News contributor and former senior CIA field operative Darrell Blocker. Darrell, thank you so much for joining us. Let's get right into this, because what do you make of these referendums? What is the likely outcome here for Ukrainians who refuse to vote in favor?
Well, as you may recall, Gio, in 2014, Russia also held a referendum in which 97% of the people who voted in favor of the Russian forces. That was Crimea and the Donbass. The difference between 8 years ago today is the fact that those same people are living under the threat of being ground zero for World War III. So I'm not certain he's going to reach 97%. Even if he does, UN member nations did not accept the 2014 referendum, and I don't see them accepting these either.
And Darrell, a U.S. official confirms to ABC News that the United States has been sending private warnings to Moscow about the consequences of any potential use of nuclear weapons. We heard President Biden issue those warnings publicly at the United Nations this week. How do you think the Kremlin has responded to those warnings?
Putin may be the top voice in the Kremlin, but it's not the only voice. He does have a very professional military, and they will speak out if they think this is going to escalate to nuclear, because I don't think anyone believes it should.
Darrell, you know, we know that large numbers of Russians, you know this, we're seeing it, we have the video, large numbers of Russians, they are fleeing the country. After Vladimir Putin announced a partial military mobilization, Russia's first since World War II. What do you make of the reaction among Russians right now?
Honestly, it's not to be unexpected. People are speaking with their feet. They're trying to get out of the country. They're trying not to be involved in a conflict in which they don't feel committed.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ukrainian officials say that hundreds of bodies have been exhumed from a mass burial site in the eastern city of Izium, and that dozens had visible signs of torture. Does this change anything when it comes to potentially punishing Putin for alleged war crimes?
War crimes are quite difficult. If we compare the Balkans and what happened in the aftermath of the Hutu Tutsi massacres, it takes years, maybe even decades, and certainly not months, to get to do the investigations, to bring someone to trial, and to convict is a very, very long process. I understand that the world is concerned with mass graves, as well they should be. However, placing him on a terrorism list or making him a war criminal will have repercussions way beyond this conflict.
All right, and we know, Darrell, that you will be watching this with us. Thank you. It's such a tragedy all around. Such a tragedy. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.